The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus summoned his 12 disciples and gave them authority over unclean spirits to drive them out and to cure every disease and every illness. The names of the 12 apostles are these: first, Simon, called Peter, and his brother Andrew; James, the son of Zebedee, and his brother John; Philip and Bartholomew; Thomas and Matthew the tax collector; James the son of Alphaeus and Thaddeus; Simon the Canaanian, and Judas Iscariot, who betrayed Jesus. Jesus sent out these 12 after instructing them thus: "Do not go into pagan territory or enter a Samaritan town. Go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. As you go, make this proclamation: the kingdom of heaven is at hand." The Gospel of the Lord. In the first reading, we hear from the prophet Hosea. God speaking to Hosea to speak to the people. The people were so blessed by God. They were growing, they were flourishing, they had everything they need. But what did they do? They turned towards pagan gods. The more they flourished, the more blessings they received, the more they worshiped pagan gods and deviated from the Lord. So Hosea was speaking for the Lord to bring them back. Be faithful to the Lord. There is only one God. This is the same God that rescued you from Egypt, right? So why are you being unfaithful to the one God who is blessing you abundantly? And so God tried to warn them to bring them back to himself, but they didn't listen. They didn't listen. And so eventually they suffered. They suffered and their kingdoms were destroyed and they were exiled. So we see similarly with us, almost 3,000 years later, the more we flourish, the more we have, the more blessings we receive, the more we worship the world, the more we turn away from God, the more we get caught up in those things. Those who are rich and wealthy and have everything they need, they don't think they need God. They don't even think about God. They get immersed in that world. They start worshiping idols instead. So maybe this whole COVID-19 thing is a way for God to get our attention, to show that we do need him, that we're not self-sufficient, that we're not in control, and that we can't rely on the world and the things of the world and the values of the world, and that we need to turn to him for help, that he is the only God. So it is. I see people, because of this pandemic, showing appreciation for the Mass. You were deprived of the Mass for months. And many people speak to me, they said they hunger for the Eucharist, they long for the Mass, they miss it so much. Great. That's wonderful that you long and you miss, and once you were deprived of it. They said they would never take the Mass for granted again. They felt they had taken it for granted because it's so readily available. And only when it was taken away did they really truly appreciate what they lost. But still, there's so many people out there who still have this hardness of heart, refusing to turn back to the Lord. I read that just a few days ago, Chris Cuomo, an anchor at CNN, a Catholic, said that we don't need help from above, that we can do it ourselves. We don't need help from above. A Catholic, right? So we still have many of these Catholics, these lukewarm Catholics who have fallen away, who've gone even more stubborn, more hard-hearted, right? We don't need God, is what they're saying. So 3,000 years later, we still haven't learned our lessons. Some people still don't get it. So God will allow them to fall, to suffer, to even hit rock bottom so that they may turn back to him. So I'm so happy that you're here. So in a way, we're making up for these people who are not grateful for God and all his blessings. So he is the source of all that is good, yet they give credit to themselves and to other things and worship idols. So we see this in the gospel reading too, that Jesus doesn't give up on Israel. He sends out his 12 apostles. He said, go first to the house of Israel to call back the lost sheep of Israel. So God never gives up on his people. He's constantly calling them back to himself. But many of them still rejected Jesus. And so he went to the Gentiles and to us. And so we see this pattern over and over again. Even now, many people still reject God. And he still calls us back to forgive us, to restore us, to bless us even more. So as we receive the Eucharist today, let us give thanks to God for all his goodness, for everything that we have, everything that we are. And we pray that Catholics, Christians, and the world will recognize the one true God who is good and deserving of all our love.